Welcome back to another edition of Conversations with History for the Michigan High School Lacrosse Coaches Association. I'm your host, Greg Norman. We're lucky enough to have with us today one of the Hall of Fame inductees, John Fowler. And John is a stalwart teacher and coach from the Grosse Pointe area, most notably at Liggett'S. And John, first of all, I appreciate you coming aboard and having a conversation with us.
Absolutely, Greg. Welcome.
The easiest way to start this conversation, John, is sort of start from the beginning. And I know for you, it's, I think, kind of a hockey player in Kalamazoo, not mistaken.
Yep. I picked up a stick when I was in ninth grade.
What are you, Hackett High School? What Kalamazoo High School?
Loy Norks. And so I was a public school kid playing travel hockey. And then somebody put a stick in my hand as my when I went to high school, and it just was a natural.
So you played a little in high school?
Yes. I always played goalie. I was a hockey goalie, and so they gave me a stick and put me between the pipes. And it my style was very much a hockey style goalie, aggressive and effective.
At the age of 62, were you a flopper or were you a Ken Dryden stand-up?
I think most people were stand-up goalies, except you could go down. But today it's a totally different position, and everything is pretty much the same. So you had much more individuality back then.
I look at my skates and my old leather pads out in the garage, and I measure them against the new stuff. I could wear cardboard boxes that would have been, would have much more success than what we had from those equipment. But I just think we had to be quicker in the old days. But that was just
you had to rely on natural talent, I think, because the equipment in today's game is designed to the T.
I'm not sure these young guys, most of the new goal pads, and I don't want to digress, but most of the new goalie pads I would think are waterproof. If you've had a bad Zamboni driver and you had those leather pads and you come up between the first and second period, you'd had about 1.5 pounds to each leather pads, and they'd shine. But the problem was they got heavier as the game went on because you sweat so much. So
once it got wet, you were in trouble.
Yeah. So from Kalamazoo, you went to prep school first. Am I correct?
Yes, I did.
Talk about the transition and how you ended up getting to prep school out in Connecticut.
Our entire hockey team, travel hockey team, we'd travel and play Caesars and play all the teams around from Kalamazoo and into Minnesota and Wisconsin. Our team ended up disbanding because that was in the middle 70s, in the era when prep schools, Culver, and many of the prep schools in the East were highly competitive and just plucked travel hockey players from Minnesota and Wisconsin and put them on their rosters. And so I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to leave Kalamazoo, which was really tough. But in a big family, one less mouth to feed at the dinner table was okay. And I ended up playing in high school at Westminster School in Simsbury, Connecticut. Very good hockey team. We were one of the best those years in New England. And I also was given a lacrosse stick there, and ended up getting a hockey scholarship to St. Lawrence in New York State.
John, was your experience that extra year in high school, and that really not high school, but that sort of freshman year in college, was that a good experience for you?
Yeah, it was. You have to be able to pack your bag as an athlete. You have to pack your bag ready to travel and ready to play. And so to take that analogy, when you're off on your own as a 15-year-old, it's not uncommon in the hockey world and in sports to live outside of your family. And so this was an opportunity for me to get a good education like I would have gotten any place, but to be able to focus on things like school and sports and school and sports, and rinse and repeat, do that 6 days a week, playing the best players around and having those kind of focuses. It allowed me then to go on to college and have that similar type of focus on what's important.
You went on to St. Lawrence, which we should point out is about a mile from Canada, so it's up there a ways. They've always had great programs, athletic programs, especially that whole Western New York area. So you went there. Did you have any idea what you were going to study when you went as a freshman?
Yeah, I knew I was my personality, my family, I'm pretty much a teacher. I enjoyed that. I enjoy business. I enjoyed economics. I was an economics education major, and I pretty much stuck to my schoolwork because I had to focus on that, along with playing two sports in college and working in the dish room for my scholarship. So I did have time to make friends for sure, but it was pretty much fairly narrow, and yet I loved it that way.
You mentioned that you kind of always knew you wanted to be a teacher. What was the impetus? What was the birth of that? Is that something from mom and dad, or is it just something that you always knew you wanted to do?
I think for sure my mom and my mom's family and all my siblings are teachers as well.
Okay.
Personality, as well as I really enjoy coaching students who I teach and teaching students who I coach. And so that combination of imparting knowledge, imparting abilities, imparting strategy, and helping them achieve their goals, it's always been a primary interest of mine, and one that I think I've done pretty well.
Do you see coaching and teaching as sort of similar cousins, the same animal? And I say this being a non-teaching coach, and I would be horrible in a classroom, but I think I'm a decent coach. And I'm curious from a teaching perspective. I certainly respect all the education classes that you took that I never took, but then I was a journalist. I wasn't a teacher. And sometimes I get into conversations with non-teaching coaches who think they have the same skills in the classroom, and they just don't. So I just wonder what your thought on that was.
Yeah, don't sell yourself short. You probably make a very good teacher, but that aside, one important aspect about being a teacher or a coach is it's not about you. It's not about what you do, or how many wins you have, or whether it was you that know more information than the student. It's whether you can help that student or help that athlete achieve goals that are for them or for the team or for the group, for the class. And so in a way, it's much more selfless, although there is a great deal of self in any program that you coach or any class that you teach. It's important to recognize and remember that the individual student, whether it's a boy, whether it's a girl, the confidence that you can give to them with showing up daily and helping them with their daily lives of growing up.
There's very few paychecks that can match watching a smile on a student athlete's face, knowing that they had connected to something. Every profession has its rewards, and that's, it doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's or the wedding invitation from somebody who played for you 8 years previous.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You don't rub athletes' noses in it, and if you lose, there's always some lessons to come out of a loss. And when you win, the extension of how the family feels and how the team feels and how everybody feels on the winning sideline, you can carry that into the next day. And so that's true in the classroom, whether it's a C on a test or a B on the test, or whether it's the parent and the student. All of that is a team.
Taking you back now to St. Lawrence, you ended up making All-American Division III as a senior, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yet as a freshman, you don't have a great deal of lacrosse experience, and that's got to say something to your athletic prowess. You must have been a pretty smart athlete. And was it come from coaching, or is it just the game kind of came easy to you?
I was always a student of the position. So when growing up, I didn't have private coaches, but I would watch the professionals. I would watch the goalies, whether it's Tony Esposito or whomever. I'd watch as much as I could and see how they did things. And so I was very good visual learner, and taking that hockey, taking that into lacrosse, I watched goalies who were my teammates or who were my adversaries. I watched them and how they did things. I didn't go to any camps. And so my training or my high school experience was just instinct and doing what came naturally. And it helps when you're on a team that has some very good offensive players that score more goals than you let in. So that that helps a lot when you're a goalie and you know that one goal is not going to be a backbreaker, although it's critical that one save sometimes can change the course of a game.
You mentioned Tony Esposito. All I can think of is Michigan Tech. This is where he started. He was a goalie way up there long ago. What we were talking about, you play hockey goalie with great success, and then you go play lacrosse. There's some basic instincts as a hockey goalie that sort of transition to being a lacrosse goalie. Would have anybody had the same success if maybe they'd have played midfield, defense, or attack? Because I think it's a little more skill position in terms of being able to catch and pass. Not that you didn't, but I think the transition to becoming sufficient and being efficient might become easier at goalie than it might be other positions because you're used to looking at things coming at you anyway. Is that a fair?
Yeah, absolutely fair in that you understand angles.
Right.
And besides angles, I was blessed to have, from my mom's side of the family, very good athletic hands. And so because of that, I could handle a shaft, handle a stick much better or fairly quickly. I love playing with it, and I love, like all lacrosse players, especially when they put a stick in their hand, it's tough to put down, and it's just a magical thing. And so to gain the stick handling prowess, I was much more aggressive. I was non-conventionally, I would say, where most Long Island kids and Maryland kids were taught to play the angle and stay in the crease and not go anywhere outside of the arc. I would challenge a shooter, and because oftentimes that shooter wouldn't have any other options, our team would shut down other options. And so when you take away the angle, you understand the angle. And I love playing the field. I loved carrying the ball and getting it up to midfield. I was a fairly good runner and had fairly good field vision. And so in that approach, I was not the stay-at-home goalie. Because there are I was pretty impactful out in the field as well.
You mentioned that you had good hands, and only another goalie is going to understand what that even means. I think of being at 66, I can still putt without the yips. If you had slow feet, but you had quick hands, you could make up a lot of ground by being smart and having better hands. But to bring that same point home, I think we grew up in an era where a lot of times goalies grew up as right fielders in baseball. It was the kid you just threw in the net. It was the kid you just – and I always thought when I started coaching that, and so my premise to this is that I think being a goaltender is a real special position. And I don't think you can just put anybody in the net. I think you have to find somebody who wants to be a goalie. And I think a lot of programs make mistakes by not finding that kid, because projectiles coming at you at a high rate of speed, be it a puck or be it a ball, takes a little bit of craziness on the part of the guy stopping the ball. Is that a thought of yours at all?
Yeah, I agree, and I also turn it towards. I've been able to have coach a lot of boys who become really good goalies. And what it is, it's a game. It's a different way of looking at the same game. And what your game is you're looking at the shooter, and the shooter has really three options. He's going to shoot it, and he's going to score it. And if you can reduce the percentages there, he's going to shoot it, and it's going to hit the post. So if you got your angles tight, you've got the post as extra defender, or he's going to miss it. So the fact is, the shooter has 2/3 of the time he's not going to be successful. He's going to hit the post, or it's going to go wide. And so if you can improve your percentages, your angles, and make put the pressure on the shooter, you're win. It's a win.
And lacrosse, I always try to find the kid with the worst memory, and the kids will ask me, what does that mean? I said, well, if 80% of the time you're going to get scored on inside of 5 yards, you better have a bad memory, because I don't want you thinking about what just happened, because you're the last line of defense, so to speak, and that's part of the game. So that's why I think playing goalie is a very special process.
If you can stop 50% of half of the shots that are taken, and if you can make them shoot half of those shots wide because you're really shutting down their angle, then your percentages are going up. 50% save goalie is pretty darn good. 60%, you're an All-American. And so if you can understand that failure is an okay thing to accept, and goals against, it happens in lacrosse. It's a high-scoring game. That the best tactic is to have a strong team defense and
Right.
talk to your midfielders and talk to your defenders and have them double and have them get that ball out of that guy's hands. And if it is coming up to that shooter, you know where he's going to shoot, when he's going to shoot, because he knows that he has very limited opportunities to shoot.
There's no doubt. Now, you have a great career at St. Lawrence. At the time coming out, even as an All-American Division III, you're pretty much looked at being a school teacher because you're not going to make a profession as a professional goaltender playing lacrosse. I mean,
Right.
if you did, I'd like to hear that story because those opportunities didn't exist. Now, you left St. Lawrence, I think it went to a prep school for 4 years to start coaching. Am I correct?
Yeah, when I left Kalamazoo, I went to a prep school. I went to college, and then I came back to teaching in a prep school. I did have an opportunity, Greg, to play professionally if I wanted to go to Australia, and I would have been sweeping a warehouse floor,
Right.
and playing for the Adelaide town team. And but the opportunity to make some money and teach in a prep school and to start my career took me away from that dream that kids had. So I went and started coaching at a prep school for 4 years, and that was a very good opportunity to learn from really good coaches how to approach the game, whether it's coaching hockey or coaching lacrosse.
What school did you go? What school was it?
High school.
Where?
In Western Connecticut. It's a rival. It's one of the Founders Leagues. They all today stack their team with PGs and seniors, kids taking an extra year so that then they can go on to collegiate programs.
That's one of the better, I'm not mistaken, that's one of the better prep schools in the country. I mean, that's a Hill Academy. That's a
Yep.
that's a
Yep.
high level kind of program. So
Yeah.
obviously, you had some real opportunity to learn early from some really good folks.
I did. I had a great coach in high school. Dave Hovey. He was an excellent coach and an excellent man, and a Hall of Famer himself. When I went to St. Lawrence, Don Leet, who was just inducted into the Collegiate Lacrosse Coaches Hall of Fame. Don was a phenomenal coach, and he let athletes play, and he didn't encumber us by systems. And he had a system, and we followed it, and yet he let athleticism take over. Then when I went on to begin my teaching career, I was mentored by a couple of really good men, my senior, older than me, but they really approached the game with wisdom. And so as a young coach, I came back to Michigan and joined the high school coaches who were few, high school programs, which were very few, but some wonderful men who are still very active in lacrosse in Michigan. And I joined them in coaching the original 6 and then the original 8, and then it grew and grew and grew through the late 80s and the 90s and the 2000s to what it was. But I was able to befriend them and go to clinics and learn from them and take my teaching, coaching. It's a hand in glove. Take it to the kids.
So from Hotchkiss to Detroit, right? What was your first
Yes.
job first job back in Michigan?
Yeah, I was a teacher at University of Liggett and the ice hockey coach and lacrosse coach. So I pulled my weight and coached hockey, which was a great sport and a great period of time. The Red Wings went from nothing to something through the 90s, and it was a great era for lacrosse as well. And so the coaching ice hockey and then putting that stick down or putting that clipboard down or putting that notebook away and picking up the lacrosse notebook or the lacrosse stick and going out to cold fields in late March, and it gets much warmer come Labor Day in May. So it was a great way to take kids who were hockey players and to teach them Canada's national sport. It was a great way to teach a wrestler or a soccer player that there's a lot of room for them on a lacrosse field, or take a pulling guard in the fall in a football season and say, here's a big pole. Wouldn't you like to do this to some guy? So you could really attract and grow a program, showing them that it doesn't matter what type of athlete you are, there's a place for you on a lacrosse team.
How long were you at Liggett?
20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have to ask this question for Ron Ebert, and we always have these discussions about the early days. So for me, an early day would have been about 95 or 6, 94, 95, 96, somewhere in there, because I had moved back from California. But my question to you is this. Ron says, well, winning a championship in those days when there were 6 teams is harder than there's now 140 teams. And I try to point out to Ron that there's more kids playing, and I'm not suggesting for a moment that it wasn't hard to win a championship, because there were some really good teams. But being the best looking guy in, Minton, Nebraska doesn't make you Brad Pitt. And so my point to it is there was a lot of camaraderie in the old days, and I get that, but we have gotten a little better, have we not, over the years with more teams and more kids?
Lacrosse is a really substantial, a very good sport now, and far better than it was across the country and certainly in Michigan. It was a challenge in the early days because there were some very good programs, when we all know them, who were all boys schools, and they made no bones about playing good athletics. And that was true for lacrosse, good athletes. And so it was always a challenge for a public school or for a private school or smaller private school to play against those. And so it was a hard championship to win, but I think it's a even more difficult championship to win now in many regards, but yet everybody has their own opinion on the ultimate goal, which is winning a championship. But the ultimate goal, I think, is to grow a program into viability, which I've had the great opportunity to do over the course of my life.
Having been one of that original group, I had a chance to ask Don lots of questions. I don't think it ever registered to him. He comes from Ohio University to start a lacrosse program at L'Anse Creuse. Well, what we found out in the interim is that Mike Jolly actually had a club team at Chippewa Valley back in 1965, 66, somewhere in that part. Now they played college guys. So here comes Don to L'Anse Creuse. I want to play lacrosse. So he starts a team. And I asked Don a very simple question. I said, when you're starting a team from scratch, did it occur to you that there's nobody to play at the high school level? And he kind of had to think for a second and said, well, we found teams. We played adult teams. We played Windsor. We played a bunch of other guys. Could you imagine, you're a lifelong teacher. Could you imagine going to your AD now and say, by the way, I'd like to start this new sport for my high school. Oh, but by the way, we're going to be playing college guys and guys that drink beer and some of these club teams. I think it's an extraordinary step to get it started. And I think we owe him a ton, but I always found that to be an interesting kind of, never deterred the idea that there was nobody to play.
Yeah, when Mike and Don, they're two remarkable men who were starting a program and starting lacrosse in an era that you could not do that nowadays.
Yeah.
And to be able to play whoever would be on a field or find the same time on the same field and play a game of lacrosse, it's a perfect game for high schools to adopt as a springtime sport, because baseball is a very limited sport for the number of people that it can accommodate, and track is for people who like to run and throw the shot put. So lacrosse is a perfect sport to adopt in the high school athletics.
Okay, so at Liggett for 20. Where was the next step after Liggett?
Yep. I was very successful. I very much enjoyed teaching and coaching in a small private school. And what I did not want to do, what I wanted to do is test myself and prove to myself and show myself that there's other things in life to do this for another 10 or 20 years and say, well, that was it. Having won state championships at Liggett, I didn't want to become stale to the teaching or the coaching profession. And so that was in the right in the year 2000 when I said to myself and my wife and I, it's always a team effort. When we decided let's do something else, and so I went to teach at Grosse Pointe South, and to also take their Grosse Pointe's combined lacrosse program. North and South were a combined program, and to take that as the MHS. We could all see the writing on the wall that the MHSAA was going to adopt lacrosse as a team sport and team offering. It was just a matter of time. And so as the 90s grew, so did my ambitions. And so my ambition was to teach in public school and to start a new program because I was successful teaching and coaching at one. I wanted to expand my roles and life experiences. So I went to Grosse Pointe South and started that program. And then after that, as things evolved, I went from Grosse Pointe South to coaching at Troy Athens. And that was a wonderful experience as well. New communities, new people to meet, to coach lacrosse players who become themselves high school lacrosse coaches. Don Wolford took over for me at Grosse Pointe South, as well as Justin McSood, and then to go to Troy Athens and to be with Bob Dowd. And for those experiences, that was wonderful and great. And Troy just ended up to be too far away from our home for me to both be a teacher and a coach without having some meaningful connection to the community, which was great people, great families, great boys and programs. But the decision was it was too far. So then I came back closer to home and to work with Mike Jolly at De La Salle. And that was a great opportunity and a great experience to be with Mike and his cadre of coaches, all fine men. And from there, after that, I went to Lakeshore High School in St. Clair Shores to teach. And the superintendents asked me to start a program. So Lakeshore and Lakeview are going to be a combined program, and that's if as we get past the pandemic and get back onto the fields, it'll be fun to start a new program. But to be able to coach it with Mike at De La Salle and with Mark Sepala at Grosse Pointe North, I was with them for 2 years, and it was really a nice experience. And I'm very, very fortunate that I made the decision to not stay at one place for a lifetime, which has its merits, its significant merits, but also to be able to take what you know and meet other new people.
Was Joe Lake your AD at South?
She was.
So my question to you is, Joe Lake had a great reputation. She was always such a good athletic director. I've dealt with her for years as a referee, and we always love to come to South. So you have Joe in this great opportunity to coach, work with her, and then you go to Troy Athens, where you've got an athletic director who is a lacrosse guy, which is a whole nother. You've been semi-fortunate to find administrators, and that's not always true in a lot of cases.
I'd have to say you're exactly right that going from one high school and their athletic administration to another high school and their athletic administration, maybe my downfall was to sit around with my feet kicked up on Bob Dowd's desk and us talking lacrosse for too many hours of the day. And the principal might have said, hey, what are you guys doing in here? But yes, Bob, very knowledgeable, and it was just great to be with him in an important era in Michigan lacrosse as it was growing, and my connections with all the men who've been involved in the growth of lacrosse to help it become an MHSAA sport, and to have the Michigan High School Lacrosse Coaches Association be a conduit for those coaches to get information, gain information, and to connect with each other.
Harder to coach for an athletic director with experience or without experience. And I say that from the difference between Joe Lake and Bob. One has the utmost understanding of lacrosse. And for the most part, nobody's going to have that kind of knowledge that Bob would have. What's from your perspective as a coach, what's easier?
Well, after every game, or at the morning after every game, he'd have a cup of coffee waiting for me on his desk. And so we'd go over if it was a win, well, I told you so. That was exactly what you should have done. And that's why my team won. And so Troy Athens had the victory in their holster. And if it was loss, well, let's kind of re-examine what was it that you were doing. Maybe you should have changed it up a little bit or done something different on your man up or man down, because sitting up in the press box, you can see exactly what's going on, and being down on the sidelines, it's a whole nother thing. And that's why parents are more knowledgeable about what their children should have been doing and how they should have been playing. And yet parents are parents, and athletic directors are athletic directors, and the coach is the coach. And that's the most important thing, the relationship between the coach and his players, the team.
I'm talking to you from Connecticut, so I'm assuming you're kind of hunkering down for COVID. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I am. My wife is also a teacher, and we're all on a pause here for a couple of weeks after the Thanksgiving holiday to just get past this terrible time and through the holidays, and hopefully everyone comes back safe and comes back healthy. It's a challenge, but my wife said that why don't we go out and do this remotely, because she's inside right now teaching her classes virtually, and my classes don't start till afternoon.
Your wife's first name is
Elizabeth.
Talk a little bit about Elizabeth being a teacher and the kind of support. You can't be a coach and not have a significant other that doesn't have either great understanding or a divorce lawyer on speed dial. And so you had this great, partner. So talk a little about her and what she's meant to you as a coach, and all the things that wives do for their coaching husbands. I'm extremely lucky. She was a college student athlete herself, and when we started off, she knew that teaching and coaching was a vocation of mine and a great passion. And so I guess the best testimony to her is the fact that we're blessed with 3 children, all of whom were themselves collegiate athletes and successful in what they did. She was raising the kids. We would tag team it. She would coach a team herself. We had friends. It takes a community sometimes to raise a family and to raise our children. We're blessed to have some good friends that would help us get a kid to a hockey practice or watch a kid on the sidelines of a lacrosse game because we were coaching ourselves, our own team. But our values were the same. Our priorities are the same, and it's all about the kids that you're coaching and the children in your own family. Yeah, I think having a wife who's a teacher gives a little more empathy for the process than maybe if you're married to a chiropractor or a dentist or some other profession.
Right. It helps when coaching oftentimes happens after 3 p.m.
Right.
And if a spouse has a business commitment at 5 p.m. or can't get out of the office or something like till 6 p.m., it's just a different challenge to have that, and a blessing if you're in the same profession.
A thought just hit my head. Is it easier politically to teach at a private school, prep school, or a public school, or is it the same?
To teach or to coach?
Coach.
They're one and the same. Yeah, you just have to. You're there for the kids, and you're there for a team, and you're there to, whether it's in the classroom or it's on the field. You want to help them get better each day understanding that the first day is not going to be your most successful, and the last day of the season is likely not to be the most successful. So to measure the season based on wins, or to measure the classroom experience based on whether you get into Harvard, those are unachievable goals, and for the majority of the time. And so to have realistic goal setting, an individual or a daily goal set. So whether it's a private school or a public school, each has its strengths, and each has its challenges. And the important thing is to be a consistent, strong leader that listens and that responds, because you want to be responsive to the clientele, whether they're the parents, or to responsive to the kids and their desires to find a space that's not on the end of the bench and that's not always on the field, because there's plenty of time in a game to play everyone. And that was, I think, one of my strengths, is that I found a place to play everyone during a game. And therefore everyone could walk away having contributed, even if it was in a small way, on a man down or a clear or a ride or a special hitch to something. They felt that they had a role in the team, and they weren't just on the team to hold a water bottle.
The LS, I'm assuming that's LS on your jacket.
Lakeshore, yes.
So that's the new. And the reason I'm calling attention to that, I haven't seen a logo, old school logo like that in a while. We're all marketing and branding for a different way, and to see the old sticks and then the moniker on top of the sticks is kind of cool. My question to you is, we kind of get towards the end of this discussion. You've had this great experience with some unbelievable teams and programs and state championships. Now you're starting over at the bottom, at the ripe old age of 62. So does your experience help in that you can call upon that to make it better, or is it you want to pull out your hair because you're so used to coaching at a better level, not a better level, but more skilled level? And I'm just curious what it's like going through the growing pains of a first-year program.
Yeah, it's a very good question, and one that a coach that had wins and winning as their number one goal and number one objective and thing that would make them happiest, they would not be successful. They wouldn't do this, and don't do it. But if you have the children, the students, the boys, the girls, on our Lakeshore team, we had 4 girls. And to be able to grow a girls program as well, we accepted girls, and the girls played the boys' sport with helmets and shoulder pads, and they loved it. And one of the girls scored a goal even, and that was a highlight of her high school career. So it was a matter of, how do you grow a sport? It's a real challenge. I have talked with my wife and mused to myself that when you're in your 20s and you're growing a program, it's a totally different thing than when you're in your 60s and trying to grow a program. But it's still basic the same. How do you generate interest? And so St. Clair Shores is a great community to do that in. It's a hockey community. It's an athletic community. It's a community of doers. And the school systems we're going to combine with Lakeview. And so St. Clair Shores will have a lacrosse program to compete or to join with all of the other Detroit metropolitan MHSA schools in the MAC. To be able to grow a team is modest goals and achievable goals for each individual player, even if it's to catch a pass or to pick up a ground ball, much less understand a 1-3-1. It's keep your goals realistic and enjoy it because the kids want to enjoy it.
At 35 or 40, do you still think you'll be coaching in your 60s?
Yep.
I'm 66. I think I'm going into my 40th year, and I keep thinking that, I at 35, I'd have said that Joe Paterno was an idiot, and now I couldn't imagine not coaching. It's the lifeblood of the process, and I couldn't imagine not taking the opportunity to spend that time, because if I have a bad day, I walk out of practice field and there it is. I'm fine because I get to get back to doing what makes us happy.
Agreed, because the kids that you're with, they are just having a blast. They just love this game, and it's the creators' game. And if we can create that enjoyment and that excitement and that interest in lacrosse for kids in a high school environment, they love walking around in the lacrosse swag and being a part of a team. And that's what really, at the end of the day, is what makes the meal after practice taste that much better.
You're coaching a unified team. I was fortunate enough to coach the first unified team for the Mhslca, and it turned out to be a ski team between Waterford Kettering and Waterford Mont. And they couldn't go back and forth on colors because one school is light blue and dark blue, and the other school is green. And it turned out I got a special on coats from Obermeyer, which happened to be black and red, which had nothing. There was no school colors. So Waterford United's colors came for 15 years were blue and red because that's what. So that was a ski team, and then we started the lacrosse team the same year as a unified program. We kept the colors for the unified team. Took away the argument. So my question to you is, they eventually went back to having to. What are the skills that you think you need, or what the skills are you using? You got two schools, and you combine them. Is it you just treat them as one, or is there something different that you might do if it were one school? Just curious.
Add to that, Greg, the fact that we're in a pandemic and we can't have contact with anybody face to face. I'm fortunate to be in a district that has a superintendent who's a real far-sighted thinker, who has an athletic director who takes charge and knows how to put together a lacrosse or an athletic team, to be able to have the confidence in knowing that the superintendents of two different districts are going to get together and make this happen. And the athletic directors are going to know what colors to choose and what name to give it. That's irrelevant. My job is with kids and to take them on day one in a gym, to make sure that they have some equipment and a stick, and to see what are the fundamentals of lacrosse, because fundamental starts with the word fun. And if they're having fun with a stick and a ball, then they're going to pick up how to pass on a give and go. And if they learn how to pass on a give and go, then we can maybe get the ball out of the defensive end and get the ball into the offensive end. And to be able to show a kid that, hey, he likes the position of goalie, and then the tackle loves to have the pole in his hand, and little fleet-footed guys are the offensive kids that like to score goals or run the field like a soccer player, that there's a space for them on the field. So a coach needs to coach and let the athletic director do what he does well, and we have that.
I think I'm going to leave it at the fundamentals begin with fun. That's a T-shirt, just in the waiting, a slogan on the wall somewhere. I think that's perfect. I've actually had kids that probably have to spell that for them, but nevertheless, John, you've meant an awful lot to Michigan high school lacrosse, and you've been a great teacher and certainly been a great coach. And I'm sorry it's taken so long for us to get to this interview, but I'm glad we did. I think people who know you know, and people who don't will watch this and realize what you've meant to the landscape of our sport and all that you brought to it. So first of all, congratulations on being in the Hall of Fame for a while, and really thanks so much for all that you've meant to the kids that we all service. So appreciate that very much.
Greg, thank you. And it's a testament to all the kids that I've coached that have been able to listen to me and to try to do what I wanted them to do. And sometimes the ball bounced correctly, and sometimes the ball didn't. And sometimes the refs made the right calls, and sometimes they made the calls that they wanted to make. And we all are very blessed in the Creators game, and to honor the game as you are with putting these videos together for everyone to have.
Thanks, John.